He sits at the table. The plate is clean. The glass of wine is half full, and the house is silent. It is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of absence. 50 years of life behind him. A career. Children. A marriage that once felt like forever. And yet here he is. Alone. Why? That is the question most people are afraid to ask. Why do so many men after 50, after 60, after giving so much, end up here, not in joy, not in love, but in quiet? The brutal truth is not that men or women are bad. It is not that love itself is broken. The truth is sharper. It cuts deeper. It comes from biology, from culture, from a system that often turns two people into enemies and leaves them both feeling like victims. And if you are listening now, I want you to stay, because this is not a story about blaming. It is a story about waking up, about seeing what love really costs when you let instinct run your choices, about how peace becomes more precious than passion when you have survived enough storms. Stay with me. This might sound brutal, but it might also free you. I am 60 now, but I was not born this age. I was once young. I once believed love was simple. I looked at beauty the way every man does. The glow of youth, the curve of a smile, the body that seemed to promise both pleasure and children. It felt natural. It felt like truth. And women looked at me, and at men like me, with a different measure. They wanted safety. They wanted strength. They wanted a man who could provide, who could carry the weight of the world and still smile at dinner. That too felt natural. That too felt like truth. But here is where it all begins to break. Biology does not care about peace. It cares about survival. It cares about passing on genes. It does not care if the marriage lasts. It does not care if two people feel whole at 70. So men chase beauty, and women chase stability, and for a time it works. He feels powerful with her youth beside him. She feels safe with his wallet, with his house, with his steady name. But eventually, the mask slips. He realizes youth does not equal kindness. She realizes money does not equal intimacy. And suddenly the partnership that once looked so perfect on paper begins to rot at the core. I remember a friend, let's call him Robert. Robert married again at 58. She was younger, beautiful, full of energy. He thought he had won. But 2 years later he was back in court. This time not just losing money, he lost the house he built before he even met her. He lost the quiet evenings he once guarded like treasure. And most of all, he lost faith in his own judgment. Robert told me once, I wasn't blind, I was just wired to chase beauty. And it cost me everything. That is what I mean when I say biology is not enough. It tricks you into thinking attraction is the same as compatibility. It tricks you into believing that stability is the same as love. But attraction fades. Money changes. And when those are the only foundations, the house collapses. And here is the painful part. It does not only happen to men. Women fall into the same trap. They choose the man with the big job, the nice car, the strong voice. But they forget to ask, does he have patience? Does he listen? Can he stand beside me when the fire dies and only ashes remain? And when the answers are no, they too end up alone, angry, exhausted, carrying stories of betrayal. This is why, after 50, so many of us stop pretending. We stop calling it romance when it is only instinct. We stop calling it destiny when it is only biology. We finally admit the truth. Biology may tell you who to desire, but it cannot tell you who to trust. It may light the fire, but it cannot keep the fire burning when the nights get long. That, my friends, is the brutal truth. So when I say men and women over 50 are waking up, this is what I mean. We are not cold. We are not bitter. We are clear enough to see that peace is not in a body. It is not in a paycheck. It is in the quiet presence of someone who values you not for what you provide, not for how you look, but for the soul you carry when everything else fades. That is lesson number 1 in this brutal truth. And if you do not learn it, you will keep walking into courtrooms, into battles, into nights alone at the table, asking why. But if you do learn it, you begin to see, you begin to choose differently. You begin to protect not just your heart, but your peace. When you pass 50, you stop believing in fairy tales, but sometimes you still find yourself living inside quiet games. Not games of joy, not games of fun, but games of control. Let me explain. At first, the marriage feels stable, the house is steady, the kids are grown, the finances seem set. And you tell yourself, we made it. We survived the storm. But storms do not always roar with thunder. Sometimes they whisper. Sometimes they arrive in small, silent cuts. The game begins when one partner stops talking. But not out of peace. It is the silence of punishment. The silence that says, you figure out what you did wrong. I will not tell you. It is walking on eggshells in your own kitchen. It is rehearsing words before dinner because you never know which ones will spark an argument. I watched my cousin go through this. He was 62, married for 30 years. Every evening he would drive home from work, park his car in the driveway, and just sit there. Engine off, radio silent, hands gripping the steering wheel, because he did not know what version of his wife would be waiting inside. Would it be warmth, or would it be cold silence? And he told me once, I feel like I am gambling with my own peace every time I open that door. That is what the quiet game does. It wears you down without raising its voice. It makes you doubt yourself, even when you have done nothing wrong. And here is another version of the game. The scoreboard. Who paid more bills? Who sacrificed more hours? Who gave up more dreams? It is a constant calculation, a ledger that no one wins. You see, love is not math. But too many couples after 50 start treating it that way. And before long, the house feels less like a home and more like a courtroom before the courtroom. And then comes the rivalry. This is one that men over 50 know too well. He spends decades competing at work, climbing ladders, fighting battles outside. And when he comes home, all he wants is peace. But instead, every decision becomes a debate. Every plan turns into an argument, and leadership is mistaken for control. Advice is mistaken for arrogance. He does not want a rival. He wants a teammate. But too often, he finds himself in a match he never asked to play. This is the part where bitterness begins to grow. Not overnight, but slowly, like rust on steel. The spark fades. Not because the love was weak, but because the games never end. And men, after 50, feel it deep. They stop talking. They stop trying to win. And eventually, they stop showing up in ways that matter. Because inside, they are already gone. By now, you might think, I am blaming women. I am not. Because men play these games too. The silence, the ledgers, the rivalry. We are guilty as well. But here is the conflict most people never name. It is not just about who did what wrong. It is about how the system around us feeds those games. Society tells men, happy wife, happy life. So we stay quiet. We pay the bills. We swallow our words. And we think peace means silence. Society tells women, if he really loved you, he would provide more. Do more. Be more. So they push. They compare. They demand. And they think love means constant proof. But neither script works. Because what it creates is not partnership. It is performance. And after 50, men and women alike are exhausted from performing. I think of another story. A neighbor of mine. Let's call her Linda. She was married for 25 years. Her husband provided everything. The house, the vacations, the savings account. But when she left him, she told me something chilling. She said, he gave me everything but himself. And I realized I was lonely in a full house. Do you see the conflict? Men think they are doing enough by providing. Women think they are doing enough by demanding more. But both end up feeling unseen. Both end up walking away. And this is where biology comes back in. Men look at youth. Women look at stability. and both assume that is enough. But they forget to ask the real question. Not, can I desire this person? Not, can this person provide for me? But, can we sit in silence together and still feel safe? Most never ask it. And that is why, after 50, the games feel endless. You might think the collapse of a marriage is sudden. One fight, one betrayal, one decision, but most of the time, it is slow. It is the unanswered text, the cold shoulder at breakfast, the sigh when you walk in the room, the distance in the bed at night. By the time they are standing in court, the marriage has been dying for years. By the time the papers are signed, both have already left each other in every way that matters. And what is left? Two people drained, two people bitter, two people who once promised forever, now fighting over furniture. This is the conflict no one names out loud. Not in church, not at family dinners, not in front of friends. But it is real, and it is brutal, because the games take more than your peace. They take your sense of self. They take your trust. They take your hope that love could ever mean more than biology, more than money, more than roles handed down by culture. And once you have lived through that, once you have been played, once you have lost yourself in the quiet games, you do not rush back into the fire. You sit at the table, glass half full, house silent, and you breathe. Because even in loneliness, there is one thing you finally have: peace. And peace, after 50, is worth more than passion ever was. By the time a couple walks into a courtroom, love is already gone. What remains is business. Cold, merciless business. I have seen men walk in with their heads high, believing truth would protect them. And I have seen those same men walk out hours later, stunned, papers in hand, wondering how they lost half a lifetime in one afternoon. Because let us be honest, the courtroom is not designed to heal. It is designed to divide. It feeds on anger. It thrives on conflict. And the only real winners are the attorneys, who bill by the hour while families fall apart. I remember standing outside one of those courtrooms. A man in his late 50s leaned against the wall, tie loosened, eyes hollow. He told me, "I worked 35 years for my house, and in 20 minutes, it was gone." He was not angry. He was not even surprised. He was just empty. This is the brutal truth. Divorce does not just end a marriage. It breaks trust in the very idea of love. It leaves both men and women scarred. And after living through it, many decide they would rather sleep alone forever than risk being shredded by the system again. The law may divide assets, but what it cannot measure is the cost. The years lost, the identity fractured, the peace stolen. And that is why, after 50, many of us begin to say, no more. Not because we hate love, not because we despise women or men, but because we know the price, and we are no longer willing to pay it. So what does a man or a woman do after all this? After biology betrayed them, after games drained them, after courts humiliated them, some shut down, some chase distractions, some hide in bitterness. But the ones who survive best choose differently. They stop chasing beauty or wealth as proof of love. They stop performing in games that no one wins. They stop believing that silence equals safety. Instead, they start looking for something deeper. Not fire that burns hot and fast, but a steady flame that does not go out in the wind. Not a partner who dazzles, but one who steadies. Not a marriage that looks perfect on social media, but a connection that feels peaceful in the quiet of the living room. Peace. That is what it comes down to. And peace is not passive. It is not boring. It is powerful. It is the ability to be fully yourself without fear. It is the quiet joy of coming home and not bracing for conflict. It is sitting at a table, glass of wine half full, and feeling content rather than empty. That is the love worth waiting for. And if it does not come, then solitude is better, because solitude with peace is far richer than partnership with chaos. So let me tell you this. from someone who has lived long enough to see both sides. Biology may draw you in, but it cannot keep you safe. Games may entertain for a while, but they will exhaust you in the end. And the law? Well, the law will always take more than it gives. The brutal truth about relationships, divorce, and biology after 50 is this: you must learn to choose peace over instinct, wisdom over desire, clarity over chaos. If you are a man listening, do not let your hunger for youth blind you to the cost. If you are a woman listening, do not let your hunger for security blind you to the emptiness it may bring. And if you are anyone over 50, know this: your time is too short, your peace too precious, your legacy too important to gamble on someone who does not bring calm to your life. So yes, sit at the table, sip your wine, let the silence fill the room, not as punishment, but as proof that you have learned, proof that you value yourself, proof that if love ever returns, it will have to walk through the door of peace first. And if it never comes, then know this: you are not broken, you are not less, you are not unloved, you are simply someone who chose to live without losing yourself again. And that is not brutal, that is wisdom. So take care of your heart, guard your peace, and remember, after 50, love is not about fire, it is about light. A light steady enough to guide you through the dark, without burning you to ash.